All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to our third video on the Microsoft Excel World Championship. The finals are upon us. We've got the final 3 cases that are coming this Saturday, and we've got the last 8 players battling it out for the title of Microsoft Excel World Champion of 2022. So it's exciting times, and I know that Andrew and the team has been working really hard in preparing for this, and yeah, I just want to welcome all of you. Andrew, the founder and CEO of the FMWC, or the Financial Modeling World Cup, that hosts the Microsoft Excel World Championships, and now the Microsoft Excel Collegiate Challenge as well, and a lot of live battles on YouTube and being live streamed on ESPN 8, I believe, the Euchre. So yeah, welcome to you. Thanks for taking the time live from Latvia. And then I've got Jason with us as well. Jason from South Africa with me. Thanks, Jason, for joining. Dim from New York, I believe, and then Dan from Brisbane. So for Dan, it's 5 a.m. in the morning. Thanks, Dan, for taking the time, and thanks for the. I know that you said that you've had a very tough drive over the past couple of days and things. So.
I've just driven from Victoria up to Brisbane, so it's been a long few days, but that's good.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. So yeah, it's different time zones for all of us, but yeah, thanks for the viewers for joining us as well. So talking about this Saturday, I just want to quickly share a presentation on my side. I believe you can see my screen. So not yet. So this weekend we have, like I said, we've got the finals of the Microsoft Excel World Championship, and that'll be live streamed on Saturday, 5 p.m. London time. So that should be a very interesting battle for the last 8 players for the championship. We've got Andrew, who's the defending champion, that's going to be participating, and then I think we have 2 or 3 new faces, Andrew, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think, well, again, just to make it clear, it's another Andrew. It's Andrew, the guy from Australia, the reigning champion. I'm Andrew, the head of the organizing committee, and making sure that everything happens correctly, and also one of the hosts for the Saturday's meeting. Yeah, we do have 2 or 3 completely new faces, in a way that's they haven't taken part in any of the streams or any competitions in FMWC before this particular tournament. And out of the 8 top seeds that we've had, only 3 are there. So basically there is quite a lot of surprises from the players who were not ranked as high as in our regular tournaments, but who are very strong Excel users and who were able to beat and get out of the tournament very, very, very strong players. So yeah, that's briefly about Saturday's tournament. So that's the final round, the last 3 rounds: quarterfinals, semifinals, the final. Very interesting cases. So really, I want to see them being played live. That's going to be very interesting, especially the finals case. We have some new concept there being added. So hope that's going to bring some, nail biting end game to the tournament. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, it's good to hear that we have something new and something exciting to look forward to. So very, very keen to watch that on Saturday. And then yeah, so and you were talking about strong players falling out. Dim and Dan actually fell out in the previous rounds, or fell out in this round that we're talking about tonight. So yeah, my condolences.
Yeah, we were expecting to run into each other in round 4, but neither of us even made it that far.
Yeah,
that is crazy. I'm just very
Okay.
happy that it was Andrew's case that knocked you out, not my case.
Well, Dim and I
I'm not the
both
bad guy.
sort of did round 4 anyway, because obviously we didn't know at the time if we had made it or not. So we'll do the case. And we kind of self-scored what our answers, what score we would have got after the fact and compared. So we could tell you who would have won had we have met in round 4, but we might just leave it open for people to
A gentleman
speculate in
never
the
tells.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, keep them in suspense. They keep us all in suspense.
But basically, you just brought a very interesting point. You really made me curious. Well, I do have some internal access to the
let's
results.
pick it up
I'll
at
ask
the
Emils. the main person who does all the tech stuff behind the scenes for the non-stream competitions. And by the way, also using the opportunity, I just wanted to say big thanks to the whole team at FMWC who's working day and night to make this happen. To Max, Emils, Nora, Shehan, Dana, who's not working with us anymore, but her designs are still there and really were made for a long time. So yeah, thank you guys.
And I'll second that, just from being involved in Model Off before this and seeing what's required behind the scenes. It's a lot of work, and so a big congrats and thanks to Andrew's team.
Yeah,
you've put together a big team, Andrew. It's great.
yeah, and I mean the competition has grown from strength to strength. If I just compare what the competition is currently and what it used to be, you guys are bursting at the seams, and thank you for making all of this possible, because we wouldn't have been this excited about Excel cases if it wasn't for your vision and for your team's hard work. So thank you for that.
Yeah, totally agree.
So we're going to be covering the cases from the past weekend, or from actually last Thursday. Or was it Thursday? Was it the weekend? The past couple of weeks have been a blur. But basically, the 4 cases that we'll be covering is the first one from the morning session. The top 32 from the morning session was Euchre by Liana Gerish or Jerish. I'm not sure how to pronounce her surname. And that was a sort of card game battle, and we'll be unpacking that. The second one was a dicey battle by Michael Jarman. The third one was called a license on a plate by Andrew himself, and then the last one, collect them all. So that was the afternoon top 32 session, and then the afternoon top 16 session was created by me. The case was called collect them all. So very interesting cases, and I guess we can jump directly into them and unpack them. Jason, you want to take us away on Euchre?
Yeah, sure. And I'm gonna take over the screen sharing.
Yeah, please go.
Okay, wonderful. Let's hope the South African internet holds out. Third time lucky. So yeah, the case was Euchre. It's a card game that Liana put together. I've never played this game myself as a card game, so I had to sort of look up the rules just out of interest in the background. But it seems like quite an interesting game. The basic premise is that you got 4 players, and you are playing with a deck of 24 cards. So you remove the cards 2 through 8. So you're left with the ace, jack, queen, king, 10, 9 of each of the suits. And it's a trump card-based game, or a trump suit-based game. So in each game, there's a trump suit, either clubs, hearts, spades, or diamonds, and that determines the value of the cards that each player is holding. There, some of the rules are laid out, but I suppose very thankfully in my mind, Liana was very kind to provide us with the ranking of each card on the right-hand side here. So the card ranks were actually provided to us. So if the trump suit was spades, for example, then the rank of each of the cards was provided. if the trump suit was hearts, you know, similarly, then the jack of hearts first, jack of diamonds second, and then go through the hearts and then the diamonds, etc. to score. So that to me took a lot of complexity out of you know, setting up the game, which allowed us to sort of get into it pretty quickly. I think an approach that I took sort of early on, which helped speed up the way that I wrote out the formulas, was I put down named ranges for each of these ranges. So the cards themselves I called cards, the suits I just named suits, and then this sort of 2D array here of the ranks I named ranks. And having those three named ranges throughout just, you know, really helped me move quickly through the case. An interesting dynamic to this question was that there was a bonus question available, which is not something that we've seen much of in previous competitions, and it made for quite exciting, you know, television on the live stream, because the players that scored the bonus point first got the points, and then the rest didn't get the points. Whereas when you're sort of you're playing in the non-televised version, both players were able to score the bonus points because we obviously weren't matching time. And this to me was quite an interesting dynamic, because you can see the bonus points in total add up to about 200 points. And just as an example, you know, level 1 gives you 75 points. And I mean, even if you go all the way down to, you know, level 4 is giving you sort of 220 points, level 5 giving you 400 odd points. So if you score the bonus points, it's almost, in my mind, the equivalent of scoring a level 4 full marks pretty quickly. And I found, funny enough, that the level 3 or the bonus 3, which gave you 95 points, which is a huge chunk to get going. And if you can secure that 95 quickly, and your competitors can't, it gives you a huge boost. And I found this to be actually a fairly simple solution. So the bonus 3 to me was the one that I did first. How many heart cards are there in games 31 to 100? And ignore all the examples and the trump suit column. So I guess just the context of ignoring the examples is, you know, don't count that row and don't count that column. You're basically just looking in the range here. But we're looking, you know, games 31 to 100, which is level 3, 4, and 5.
And you can do that. You can do that without a lambda. So you can do it with dynamic arrays these days without a lambda in one formula if you really wanted to. So it's really like super easy. And yeah. I guess that was your attempt there, Jason.
Yeah,
so
well, I just did a count if. So I mean, very simplistically, you know, count if in the range for the level 3. Just select the level 3 array and count if. You know, a heart character, and I just put a wildcard asterisk before the heart, because then I don't care if it's a jack, a king, or a queen, or whatever. So basically just count everything that has something before a heart.
It's even simpler than mine. So
yes,
my
wildcards for the win.
Yeah, it's a good use.
My solution wasn't that simple, but yeah, that's very simple for 95 points.
Yeah, and I mean,
very efficient.
Yeah,
this I did this in like 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, a minute, you know.
Yeah.
So 95 points in a minute in these competitions is like game changing, especially if your opponent can't then get those 95 points. Exactly. So I mean, there's probably a more elegant way to do the whole range in one go, but I mean, you know, copy this, paste twice, and then just change the range and sum it up. That was, to me, a really simple way to go.
And all competitors are being televised this time around. So I guess we might see them going for bonus questions first. You never know.
Yeah, actually, it's a good approach to just read these bonus questions when you have time, and you do have time, especially if you're televised before the round. So basically, the case is being dropped like 5 minutes before the start of the round. So the players can read the instructions, the bonus questions, and they might think of how they can solve that. There was a game, I think that was the Continental Battle for Africa, where the guys have dropped their bonus answers like within seconds after the timer was started.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very interesting tactically. Like I've never done one of these live, but I've tested some of the questions for this weekend with that kind of mindset of, okay, I've had a few minutes to look at it before I start. Where do I start? You have to. There's a lot going on because, like you said, it's worth a level, but at the same time, if you spend 5 minutes working through the bonus questions, and that means that you don't get level, the last level finished, and that's worth 400 points, then you need to kind of almost make a call on how long every piece of it is going to take you before you can make. And obviously, you don't have time to totally figure that out, but you got to make your best call on what the whole round is going to look like before you even know, should I start with the bonuses or not.
It depends on the questions, and I think in this case I would go straight for the bonus questions first. And even if we were competing off stream where both participants could get the bonus questions, I still think on a points per minute basis the bonus questions are probably easier points than some of the later levels on this one, so I'd go for them. The tactically thing, it was interesting. I understood the rules for the live battle in round 1 and 2, and I assume it carries all the way through, that even if you get the bonus questions and then you stop your opponent getting them, if you're doing it on a stream, if your opponent happens to get 1,000 points from all the other levels before you do, they win. Even if you were to say get the bonus questions first and then get 1,000 points on the other levels after they did, they would still win, which I found a bit of an oddity of the rules, and it could mean that even if you thought the bonus questions were easy points, if you believed you could get all 5 levels out within the 30 minutes, you'd be better off doing that. But
that was not the case. In this case, then
that's good. You've changed that. I'm glad.
Yeah. So we were trying this twist in the rules. But I think it's going to be a little bit confusing for these streams. We might get it back at one point or another, but it's not going to be not in the semifinals, not in the finals.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
I'll Dim and Dan and Andrew, fully take your guys' comments about having to make a call between the 400 points versus the 200 points. I think, I have a strong appreciation for the fact that most of us are not going to get to the 400 points. So,
no, and honestly,
in my context,
these questions are written and calibrated so that shouldn't happen anyway. With the possible example of, say, the final, where it's just you write something that hopefully both people of finals caliber can get, and you give them enough time that they both can get, and it's just a race to see who gets it first. And that's kind of acceptable for the final. But for everything else, ideally, you want to calibrate the questions such that, people aren't getting full marks, or else you haven't really done enough to be able to rank people. So
Agreed.
Yeah. Cool. So funny enough, bonus 1 to me was, I guess, to the comment that Dan and Dim made around, do you start setting up your model first? And actually bonus question 1 was more helpful for me to understand the logic of the questions, having looked at level 1, and then I could actually understand what bonus 1 was asking me, because when you first dive into this and it says, what's the second best card, I'm kind of thinking, I don't know, what does that even mean in the context of this game? But having done level 1, then it made sense. So I'll come back to these two, but just sort of in the interest of time, I'll move forward onto level 1. So level 1, what is the best card in each list of cards? So the way that I approach this is saying, we were given this ranking table up above. So I just did a lookup across all of the cards based on the suit to get their sort of score, and then I did a sort by to sort the cards that were given, the blue array, by the rank in ascending order, and then just took the first card, and that gave me the jack, and then just took so basically just take the lowest point, which is the best card in the context of this game, and so I sort of built it out, and then the formula just put it all together and then copied out. So that was fairly straightforward.
I think that's the way almost everybody would have done it, except whether they use help themselves or not.
In terms of, then interestingly, looking at bonus one, that sort of, I fed bonus one off of level one. How many questions in level one included the second best card? So you've now sort of figured out what the best card is, but what was the second best card? And that's in most cases the jack of the other suit of the same color.
Well, in every case, that's it.
In every case, absolutely. So sort of similar approach, and I just did pulling the value of all the cards in the 10 cards that were given, and then just did a match on number 2. So is number 2 there, and wrapped that in an is number and an n to turn it into ones and zeros, and then just summed up the column, and that gave me the bonus for bonus one. Okay. Level 2, then we were given the first card of each player, and we're just asked which player won the round. So essentially you're looking for which player had the best card, essentially. And again, I used the same logic as what I had previously. So just look up the value of each of these cards. I just did it across the whole range so that it was sort of speedy to copy down. And I used the in the X lookup, in the if not found if not found argument, I just put in 999 because if it's a high value, it's going to be the worst outcome. So then I just got a bunch of 999s, and then you really just look up the minimum value, which in this case is number 1, which was the jack of diamonds. And if I look up the minimum value of this range, I just sort of manually put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 across the top here. That gave me, player 2, etc. And then pulled that across down. So that was fairly quick as well in my mind.
One little tip on that one. I'm very used to the kind of match the max of the list against the list in sort of the old world. With XLOOKUP, if you just XLOOKUP something that will be smaller than any of them if you're looking for the smallest, or something will be bigger than any of them if you're looking for the biggest, then you only need to kind of hit the array once. So like if you replace the first argument with 0 and then make the match type exact match or next larger, it'll match on the smallest one. So it's just can be a shorter way, like I said, so you only have to get to the array once. Great.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And then you don't have to reference that same range again. Yeah. Great tip. Thanks. Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks, Tim. And these, I've used the additional arguments in XLOOKUP in both of these formulas. Then the one if not found, and then also as you say, the exact match or next larger or next smaller or whatever. So I'm definitely a pundit for XLOOKUP. I'm trying to think if I did bonus 2 next or not. I think I did. Bonus 2 was the last of the bonus questions that I attempted. Well, it was the last in the order that I attempted them. So the question is, in game 51, which is the first game of level 3, what is the best card that wasn't dealt? So if I go down to level 3, level 4, 51. What is the best card that wasn't dealt? So we've given a bunch of cards, and to figure out, what's the best card that was not dealt. We've got 4 players, 5 cards each, so we've got 20 cards, and we've got out of a possible 24 cards that could have been dealt. And we've got ranks of each of the cards from the lookup table above. So the way that I thought about this is saying, if I first look up the value of each of the cards, sort that in ascending order, so I get a list of 1 to 24 with 4 holes in it, and then I find the first value in a sequence of 1 to 24 that doesn't appear in that list, and that's the approach that I took. So I'll just show you here. This was my sorting the values of the cards that were given to us. this is just a pure sequence of 24 numbers, and then just saying, if you try and match all of the 24 numbers against the values that were drawn, which ones are not there. And for example, the first one here is number 10, that wasn't there, and then I just found the not found value, and that gave me the 10th card, and then just for the 10th card.
So if you're under pressure there, after you've done the second step, the rest
you
could be
look at it manually.
Because if you're under pressure, you see number 10 is not found, and you look for number 10 in that suit, and you're done.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out min ifs and because not found. So it's easy to match something that is there, but it's a difficult thing to like change in your mind to find something that's not there. So do I do a filter, or how do I get the stuff that's not matching? That could actually like waste some time if you're under pressure.
Yeah, and actually, Renier, you're absolutely right. And I was doing this sort of after the fact. I wasn't in the particular round, so I was sort of taking my time thinking through it. And I mean, absolutely, in this context, especially because it's a bonus question, that's one question. Just once you get here, just do it manually, because I probably spend more time setting this up than to find the first one. Obviously, the benefit of the formula approach is that when you copy it down for 20 answers, it's faster, but in this case, it was the first one, so it's just gone ahead. Right. Then level 3 and 4 were actually very similar in terms of setting them up, and I actually tried to tackle them. With the same logic initially, and then I sort of reverted to doing it in two different in two different sections, but. Essentially, we've given the cards, the 5 cards per player, and we're told that the players play their highest ranked card on every turn. And the difference between level 3 and level 4 is that in level 3 they give us the order in which the cards are played, and then it asks us who won the overall round. Who won the game, which is the player that have the most rounds won, and then the question is, the player that won the whole game, what card did they play on round 5? So interesting scenario that Renier and I spoke about separately on a call earlier in the week is if you were running out of time and there was a minute left and you were on this question, statistically your answer is going to be either the Jack of Spades, the 10 of Diamonds, the Jack of Diamonds, or the 10 of clubs. So if you just did a rand between 1 and 4 and did a choose for these 4 cards, you in theory had a 25% chance of getting it right. So that in the context of this competition is a fairly high probability actually of scoring some points if you're completely out of time. I think the reality is that most players probably got to level 3. And that approach, actually, funny enough, I thought it wouldn't have worked for level 4 because I was sorting the cards out. But actually, I think it does work for level 4 as well, the same logic. So if you did a round between on level 3 and 4 together, you in theory would have scored 25% statistically of all of the points.
It certainly works in level 4 if you've sorted the cards first. But I mean, this one you could almost just eyeball and just answer them, manually. Like you look at game 51 and you say, well, you've got a king, a 9, and a queen. So it's going to be one of the 2 kings. And then you just got to, if you remember, you look, there's a trump suit, or you remember the order of the suits that, were given in the rules if it's non-trumps. And you could just quickly do them, you delete columns 1 to 4 of each player's hands if it makes it easier to eyeball them, because it's superfluous information. And I think that one you could almost, in the case of 5 seconds per row, go through each one manually.
Maybe you play more cards than I do. I was playing around with this one, just trying to check things manually when I went wrong, and it's just, I don't play any game like this, and it's just totally.
Well, it's interesting. I do play a lot of cards, but I play Euchre as well. I certainly used to in my younger days with my family, and so when I came across this question for the first time, levels 3 and 4 actually threw me a bit because they follow rules different to actual Euchre. Actual Euchre is played the way level 5 is played, where you need to know who actually is the first person to play their card for a round. Makes a difference. But levels 3 and 4 it's always player 1 leading first. And you don't have the rules about following suits, or you can only win if you play the same suit that was led or the trump suit, which is really Euchre as per level 5. Doesn't exist in level 3 and 4. So that threw me at first when I'm looking at this. But I'm glad that level 5 came through with a more accurate representation of the real game.
I'll let you you talk through level 5 then if you want to, because I didn't do level 5.
Oh, look, honestly,
no,
I mean,
I'm joking. Yeah,
I can see how to do level 5, but it's time consuming. And I suspect if I was doing this in the 30 minutes, by the time I got to level 5, I wouldn't have enough time left to do it in the way that I see. This is how I would approach it. So not much more to say on it.
Yeah, I think I had the same sort of view. I think the rules are clear, and it would just be more of a process of getting the cards in the order that you needed them, and then you could, I guess, continue applying the logic. So level 3 and 4, as I said, sort of pretty much the same logic. So I'll just run through level 4. I'm conscious that we still want to run through the other cases. So I followed the sort of, pull in the current example and then do some calculations, then do a data table. I use that approach for solving this. So just pulling in, example 4 into this section, again, giving me the score of each of the cards, and then the difference between levels 3 and 4. So level 4, I had to then sort the cards that were given into their order of best to worst card. So I just did the sort by of the cards that were given based on their rank. So that put them in order. So essentially, you're working with a new layout order of the cards rather than which was given. And then I used the new wrap rows function, which I found quite handy in this example, to just lay them out into game 1, 2 or round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, if you just pick up the score of each of the cards and you figure out, what's the min, I should do the 0 thing here again. Figure out who's got the minimum point in each column. And then I can see that in example 4, player 3 won 4 of the games. So then the answer is, what card did player 3 play in their fifth card? And I think the confusion that I had initially was I pulled the fifth card once it had been sorted. So player 3's fifth card, once it had been sorted, the Jack of Hearts. But I think the solution was actually calling for, once you figured out which player won, what was the fifth card that they had in the layout here.
Agree. It's only who won round 5, what card won round 5. I think whether that player happened to score 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 for the game was irrelevant. That's how I read this. So. Your identification of player 3 won 4 of the 5 rounds, so I want player 3's card for round 5, was not how I interpreted this.
And actually, mentioned that it was clearly stated in the rules actually that what's the card that was played by the winner in the 5th round. So here, row 138. So But I see that
that's why you give examples as well. I mean, I can see the ambiguity, because you could say the winner is the winner of the whole game, and what did they play. But yeah, I could see the ambiguity. But hopefully most people did it right.
Sorry, Bo also commented now in the comments and said he understood that we needed to answer the best 5th card or the worst card of the winner. So there was a lot of confusion around this one. I think I was confused. A couple of guys were confused, but it was clarified later on the FMWC chat as well. So, and I mean, sometimes these cases do have a bit of ambiguity and a bit of interpretation. But but I guess that's just the natural flow. I think that's just part of the game. And the cases keep on improving on instructions, and they keep on improving on quality. So yeah. I guess you'll find this kind of ambiguity. But I think in the interest of time, we must step on to the next case. So I think that's you, Dim, that's going to lead us on that. Am I right?
Yes. Let me
Dicey battle.
Let me pull it up here, and then I'll share my screen. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm realize we're running a little behind here, so I'm going to do the quick version of this one. So this is a Michael Jarman case based on a game called Dicey Dungeons, which I've never heard of. Never heard of Dicey Dungeons, never heard of Euchre. This was not the round for me. Luckily, I didn't have to do either of those cases live. I managed to fail for other reasons, but anyway. So basically, the idea is, you roll some number of dice in each level, and then you have various different weapons that you can put the dice into to do damage. So it starts off with simple things. The sword does the damage equal to whatever dice you put into it. The broadsword does whatever damage of whatever you put into it +2. And then it gets into weapons that are more powerful, more complicated, and also more picky. So for example, the battle axe does the damage of double whatever you put into it, but it can only take numbers 1 to 4. It can't take a 5 or a 6. And there's various other weapons further on that have very bizarre rules. I'll see how far we get on those. So I'll kind of talk about the bonuses quickly first. I failed to do bonus 3. This was like a byproduct of the way you do level 3. I didn't set up level 3 in a way that allowed me to do it. I kind of fudged level 3 in a way that I'll show you when I get there. So I wasn't able to do that one. But 1 and 2, so the question was how many dice were thrown in total in the game, and then if you throw the dice in the sequence that they appear in the games. So in other words, starting from this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, then on to the next row, and so on all the way through. And if you score them in this way, so you add up the number of pips, and every time you roll a 6, you multiply by 6, then at what game do you get above 1,000,000 points? So similar to what Jason mentioned, a lot of the tactics of this is figuring out how far you're going to get. I kind of read these and thought, wow, some of those later ones are really hard. So I went for the bonus relatively early on. So let me just quickly show you. I did this a slightly fancy way, which is, well, there's a little bit of setup first, which is, getting from these dice icons to numbers. One way you can do that is you just, grab the 6 of them, list them out in order, and just match against that. Or a trick that I learned from Bo, who I think is on the live stream at the moment, known as XL Wizard, is that if you take the Unicode of those characters, they are 6 consecutive numbers starting from 9856. So if you take Unicode of a dice minus 9855, then you get the number that's on the dice, which is pretty handy for this case. So for the bonus, then I basically did a 2-call of the entire range containing all the dice, and then I did a Unicode to see just Unicode of that minus 9855. Some of them threw errors because there were different things in there. I just said if error 0, because anything that threw an error was not relevant, and anything that did not come out in the range 1 to 6 was not relevant. So like all these things here, just don't have to think about them. Then it would have been pretty easy to do it just off that, but then you had to filter out the examples. And so the way I did that was I did another 2-call over here, converting this column of game names into. So I basically added 0, 14 columns wide to that, to expand that to be 14 columns wide, then converted it to a column. And so that gives me next to each of these, the examples all errored out. So I just wrapped it in if error 0. So, that's example 1, but it just zeroes out. And then this is the start of game 1, game 2, game 3, and so on. So basically what I end up with is, numbers between 0, 1, and 6 for a dice here, if it's a valid dice, and the game number over here. And then you can filter that. Just stack the game number and the dice number together, filter it where the dice is greater than 0, less than 7, and the game number is not 0. And then you get all the dice played. So like, here's the 4 dice from game 1, the 4 dice from game 2, and so on down, all kind of neatly stacked up in order. And then you can just, so to answer the first bonus question, you can then just do a, count the rows of that filter range. And for the second one, you can just do this logic. So if the dice is 6, then you multiply the previous score by 6. Otherwise, you add it and roll it along, and then you just need to do an X match, an X lookup, sorry, to figure out. And again, it's an exact match with -1 exact match or next smallest. So it's figuring out, when do you first get to 1 million or 10 million, or I think it was 1 million you had to get to. So you get to that here on game 33, and you can look that up to return that. Sorry, no, game 31. I guess we were, yes, sorry. So 1 million, not 10 million, or not 1 billion, or whatever it was it got to. So that's those 2 bonuses, which I was able to knock out relatively quickly. So then dive into the details. Level 1, you just have 2 simple weapons. Sword does damage equal to the dice you put into it. Broadsword does damage +2. So the only nuance here was, it was basically just take the largest 2 numbers and then add 2. The only thing you had to watch out for was the cases where there was only 1 dice, that you didn't accidentally count too much. So the way I did that was, I took the largest one and added 2. So that's the damage that the broadsword does. And then I said, if the count was greater than 1, in other words, if there's more than 1 dice, then take the second largest one, otherwise 0. So that does that one. Second level, again, somewhat straightforward. So the battle axe does damage equal to twice the dice roll. The broadsword does damage equal to the dice roll +2. And there was a hint here saying, take the highest thing below 4 for the battle axe, and the remaining thing for the broadsword. And so that was mostly what I implemented, which is, take some max ifs to find the biggest of these that's less than or equal to 4. And then I had a very silly way of removing that dice. So I said, if the number is equal to where, so a match to see, this one that I've picked, the 3, appears in the 3rd position. And then I said, if the number is equal to that, then give me a blank, otherwise give me these. Not the smartest way to handle removing the dice. It would have actually been better to count how many of each of 1 to 6. Yeah, well,
Well, I just would have said, if the max is 5 or 6, use that. Otherwise, use the second largest from the set.
Yeah. The way it carries over to some of the later levels would be a little different depending on how you approach it.
Absolutely.
But this was definitely not the best way to do it.
It's also anyway, worth noting the hint is wrong. It should say we used the highest roll below 5, just for anyone out there noticing that.
No, the hint says use the highest roll
below
up to
5.
Oh, sorry, below.
It should say below 5. Yeah,
less than rather less than. Fine.
Yeah.
You're a pedant, but I'll give you that.
Yeah.
And then the only kind of twist here was, if there's only 1 dice, then in the case where it's a 1, you're actually better off to put it into the broadsword that adds 2 rather than the battle axe that multiplies by 2. So that was one kind of edge case that you could trip up on there. If you put that into the battle axe, it'll give you a 2, but if you put it into the broadsword, it'll give you a 3. But that, aside from that, that's simple enough. Level 3, the new thing was, so you had a sword still, which just does whatever you put into it, and then you had a rifle, which if you put 8 pips into it, then it does 12 damage. And if you put more than 8, it doesn't matter. It does 12 damage anyway and empties out. If you put less than 8, then whatever you put into it carries over to the next round. So this is one, again, this is the kind of file that I built while I was testing this. I was trying to do it, in the actual time. So again, not the most elegant way, but a real way that I did it was, so first, again, just convert all the dice to numbers, and then, again, maybe not the easiest of ways to do this, but this is basically just saying, what is the sum of the 4 of them minus each one? In other words, what sum can you get with the other 3? So here, the sum of the 6, the 3, and the 5 is 14, and that's that 14. The sum of the 1, the 3, and the 5 is this 9. So basically, these are all the different ways that you can add up 3 of the 4 numbers to get a total. And basically, what I'm checking for is, which of these are at least 12, because that's the way you can put 3 dice into the gun to make it shoot. And then if basically saying if at least one of these is greater than or equal to 8, then I have enough to shoot the gun. And if you can shoot the gun, you're always better off to shoot the gun. So then it's you get 12 from shooting the gun, and then this whole funkiness here is basically saying take off the lowest sum of 3 that you can use to shoot the gun, and you're left with whatever you're left with. So in other words, take the smallest of these sums of 3 that's at least 8, and take that away from the total. That's the biggest dice that you can be left with, and that's the one you want to put into the sword. And then I just put over here, if none of them is greater than or equal to 8, then just give me X. And so, what that looked like was basically I had a handful of X's here, all the ones that I've turned orange were X's. And once I saw that there were 5 X's in total, I just went and manually looked at what to do with each of those. So, in this case, for example, in the last level, there's not enough to shoot the gun, so all you can do is put 2 in the sword. In other cases where you're not on the last level, then you had to think about what you could load into it for the next round and so on. But yeah, like I said, that those edge cases were few enough that I found it faster to just do it manually.
What a crazy case. Is this level 3?
This is level 3. It gets much more complicated than this.
So I'm gonna love seeing Bo attempt to do this in a speed run under 20 minutes.
Under 20 minutes, please. Bo can solve all 4 of these cases in under 20 minutes. So I'll skip over level 4 briefly, because that actually in my mind was the hardest one. I would have made that level 5, but by the time I was testing this, it didn't seem prudent to switch things around. Level 6. 5 and 6 are both pretty complicated. So on level 6, the key thing is that you're so in all these levels, you're dealing damage to an opponent. On level 6, you're on very low health, and so as soon as your turn is over, your opponent is going to hit you, and you're going to be knocked out unless you can shock them, and then they're stunned for a turn. So you have a hammer that will apply shock if you roll a 6, and otherwise is the same as the sword. So it does whatever damage you put into it. The buzzer, if you put an even number into it, it will shock your opponent. And then you have the battle axe, and the dice cannon is basically just anything that's left over you can do 1 damage with. So the fun here is basically you have to ensure that you survive as long as you can. So in other words, the first priority is to either put a 6 into the hammer that'll do damage and a shock, or put a 2 or a 4 into the buzzer that will shock, so that basically you survive another turn. The twist, which I missed when I did this originally, and it tripped me up on a couple of the edge cases, is that you don't have to prioritize shocking in the last turn, in turn 3, because at that point you're trying to maximize the total damage you do over the 3 turns, and so whether you get knocked out after turn 3 is irrelevant. So here's how I did. Did I even get this one working? Yes, this is how I did level 5. So again, I just pulled it onto a separate sheet. I put a turn picker here. So I said, on level 73, turn 3, these are the 4 dice you have, the corresponding numbers. And then the more sensible way I alluded to earlier, I map those into, how many 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s, because then it's much easier to take one thing out as you go along. And then I just figured out, okay, do you... First preference is to use the hammer, and that you should pick that. What was I doing here? Sorry. Yeah. So in other words, if you can do 5 or 6, then you should pick the hammer first, because 5 you can't use it to shock instead. You can't use it for the battle axe instead. So if you don't have a 6, then you should just take it. And 6 obviously allows you to both do damage and shock. And so if there is a 5 or a 6, then you should use the larger of those for the hammer. Then if you did not use the hammer, and if there's an even number, then you should take that for the buzzer. I think you take the smallest one. Then you give the battle axe the biggest number, less than or equal to 4 that's still left, and you kind of work your way down from there. And then I just did a data table to apply that to each of the turns and each of the levels. And you can see I added 1,000 if you were able to shock, and then I converted this into, okay, so here you've just got mod 1,000 to take the 1,000 away. Here it's if your previous turn is above 1,000, then you take the bit without the 1,000. And here, if both the previous turns were above 1,000, then you take the bit that's above 1,000 and add those up. a little bit funky. And then level 4 was, in my mind, super complicated. So the idea is you've got a battle axe, which can do double for 1 to 4. You've got a broadsword that adds 2, and then you've got this other thing called a hook shot, which can take any even number. And if you use the hook shot, then you can use one of the other 2 weapons again. So if you think through all the different combinations that you could apply to these 4 dice, if you use the hook shot, you can pick one of them to be the hook shot, you can pick 2 of them to be the battle axe and one of them to be the broadsword, or 2 of them to be the broadsword, one of them to be the battle axe. Think about all the different ways you can permute that. I was kind of reeling when I was trying to do this in 30 minutes, did not get it done. When I came back to it later, I eventually decided the best thing to do was just to map out all the cases. So I said, here's what you can achieve if you don't use a hook shot, which is just basically figuring out what's the best combination of the sword and the battle axe you can use, because you can only use one of them each. And then I laid out, okay, what happens if you use dice number 1 to be the hook shot? What happens if you use dice number 2 to be the hook shot? What happens if you use dice number 3 to be the hook shot? I could not find any smart way to figure out from a given set of dice which one should be the hook shot, because there are so many edge cases to it. So it basically said, if the hook shot is 1, I just check if that's even. If it's not, I discard all these calculations that follow. And then, these are the dice that I'm left with. And then I mapped out, within each of these, I mapped out 2 different cases, which is, one option is use 2 battle axes and 1 broadsword, and the other option is use 1 battle axe and 2 broadswords. Because again, depending on the case, one of those might be better than the other or not. And then again, a big data table to kind of map that out for each turn, for each level. Like I said, that one was that one was totally brutal. But it's good to have a challenge in these things. And this one was very much, more a logic challenge of like, how do you even go about kind of nailing down all the cases that you need to think through, and doing that in a way that's not, all the kind of 4 factorial permutations times 3 levels times 20 cases, etc. That's just intractable to compute. So yeah, this one was a little traumatic, trying to get it done in half an hour, but a very fun case.
Sorry, I had a drop in connection there. Can you guys hear me properly again?
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
Great. Yeah, so I guess we can see from the time we're taking just to talk through these cases that they have become more and more complex. So it's interesting to think what to expect for the weekend. But yeah, let's get into Andrew's case. We will be running over the hour, but I guess we keep on going until we're done. If you guys are available, if you're not, you can drop off. But yeah, let's get into Andrew's case.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Basically, a quick remark on your statement about about the complexity and everything. The complexity is actually not the goal of having these cases. In my opinion, the best case is when you have maybe one person is very close to getting 1,000 points or maximum points, or maybe even gets that, but doesn't have too much time to spend. Then you can praise that it's maximum, but at the same time there still is some challenge. But it's not very good when people get stuck on 300 points and basically there is no sense in making the further levels, and there is little sense of making testing them, because still people are going to be stuck on level 3.
I echo that, and I agree with it. And I think the case we just looked at that Michael wrote, it was probably too complex, not in the sense of maybe the calculations required, but the amount of time you'd have to spend just to understand what was being asked and understand the rules of the game. I think particularly for the later levels was probably not perfect. It uses up too much of the 30 minutes. The other trap, just generally, we want to avoid with questions, and I think this happened in last year's competition in some of the rounds, was something where, say, levels 1 and 2 or 1, 2, and 3 are quite straightforward and most people get them, and levels 4 and 5 are too difficult and barely anyone gets them. And then you get a big clump of people all finishing around a similar score. and then the winner in a lot of head-to-heads might be determined just by who makes a lucky guess for level 4, or who manually does the first game of level 4 or something like that. So it is a very tough job, just getting the balance right in these questions to make a good competition. And hopefully with, more experience, well, we get a wider pool of question designers each time, but then hopefully, there's someone at the organizing side kind of overseeing it and giving the right feedback, so that the final published questions get the balance right to as much as we can, but it's not easy.
Yeah, and you know that much better than anyone, because you have many more years of experience than anyone does have with that.
It's not easy. So we'll get better as a team. We'll get better each year, but it's the quality is very good, I think.
The fact here is that actually we this, by the way, is a modified version. So there was one level that, thanks to the tester comments, we have just kicked out from the competition due to extreme complexity, and eventually I think it went down from 6 to 5 levels. So and still levels 4 and 5 quite difficult.
Yeah.
So. And the fact is that the more cases you do, the better you become. So basically practice. That's
absolutely. You're doing a great job.
And if I can just jump in quickly before you share your screen, for anybody that hasn't tried to design a case before, give it a shot. It'll give you a lot of appreciation and a lot of patience for the kinds of cases that you see, and the anomalies that you think are obvious, but it's amazing what you sort of assume people know when you design a case yourself. And it's a great experience to go through to try and do well.
Yeah, it also gives you an appreciation of, if you think that it takes, something on the order of half an hour to write a case that takes something on the order of half an hour to solve, you're in for a surprise.
It does. And even for the testers, if they get to do their job right, have to do every level, even if it's something like you look at and say, oh, I'm not going to get there in half an hour, I'll skip, it's too hard. The tester might have to invest the 2 hours necessary to get the last level out, or just give the feedback saying, I didn't do level 5, it was too hard.
And I tested my own case. The last case was actually designed a year ago, and it was a bit redesigned for copyright reasons, because it was modeled on a very popular game, but the creator of the game didn't want to allow us to use any of the likenesses, but we'll get to that.
Being monopoly.
And just testing my own case a year later took forever to test properly. So yes, a lot of appreciation for the guys that create and test the cases.
Yeah. So let's then jump over to the third case for today, and let me share the screen. It's this case is a license on a plate. So basically, the key idea there is that the drivers in the fictional country of Speedland are just crazy. They drive very very fast, and eventually the speed cameras have been introduced throughout the country, and you've been invited to help calibrate the results there with the data stream coming from these speed cameras. An interesting fact, guys, when you design cases, you have to think carefully what exactly you design, because on the day of the competition, I got my first speeding tickets over the last 2 or 3 years. So that was a coincidence or something. But
so design a lottery case next time where the players win the lottery.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a good choice. I should have bought a ticket. I think we've had some lottery there in the beginning of the year. I should have bought a ticket actually, but on that day. Yeah. So this case quite heavily relies on, let's say, the text to columns, so that you get the first set of data to analyze. So as you see, basically the idea of the case is that you're getting different sorts of data sets all in one text string, but being split by different characters. And with the passage of time, so initially you get some plate numbers, license plate numbers, then you get license plate numbers in a different format, and then you also start getting some speed numbers as well. And finally, this gets complicated with the fact that you need to start, calculating how much money will you be able to receive as in fines. My fine was 40 euros. That was a small speeding. I think that's even smaller than this country has here in their fine, the chart of fines. On level 5, that gets complicated because there are foreign cars coming to kind of spoil your results, and you can't really charge them anything by post. And actually level 6 was just a little bit of a tweak towards level 5. So I think this is where some people just got, scared off in a way that's typically you look like, okay, each next level that should be harder than the previous one. Basically, if you're able to get the logic for level 5, then level 6 is basically requires a few tweaks, and then it's possible to get going. So
exactly what you just described is what happened to me. I looked at it, I was like, I don't have enough time left to do this. I'll go do the bonuses. Big mistake.
Yeah. And basically, Dim, you were having the second best result in the whole session from all the people who were solving this case on the test day, and that was a bad not a bad luck. That was a very good performance by your opponent, who actually did the best performance on the day. So sometimes you really get yourself together and bring your A game on against the someone who's a star.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this weekend.
Yeah, you will be probably cheering for him, will you?
Oh, I'm quite conflicted. There's a lot of people I'd like to see win in this weekend. Actually, I guess I would feel good if it was only the winner could beat me.
Okay, so right then let me just quickly jump to the file that I was using as a test file, giving out the first solutions for the case. So I was doing that on level by level case. Some the first ones were really easy, basically what you do, and I'm not going to demonstrate for all the 6 levels, but basically the key idea is that you this thing, in my opinion, helps you to master the text to column thing. So you just copy these numbers. In my opinion, I was just pasting them to a new sheet, to a new tab, and then using the how do I remove that thing from here? Okay, never mind. So basically, data, text to columns, and then go to delimited data type. And in next, I could select okay, what was there? The semicolon, and we could also get this thing. So which basically allows us to split the numbers and the letters. And then it's only
it's interesting you say that, because the way I did this and the way I think Diarmuid did this, we just used the new text split function.
Yeah.
But that didn't break it out into the numbers and letters. It kind of just gave us 10 cells that had the combined string for each number plate with the letter and number together. And so then further work had to be done to separate out just the number, or in the later levels, further work had to be done to get the speed and so on. So the text split function would at least get it separate data points broken up by the semicolons. But I can see there the text to columns, whilst a little bit longer than the text split function, can do a bit more work. So yeah, maybe that was the way to go.
It also has a little bit of an advantage in that if something that you split out is a number, it'll automatically turn it into a number. Whereas if you use text split,
you got to wrap a value function
to turn
around
it into a number,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's great to have basically to know all the possibilities, everything you have in your let's say arsenal of things. In my case, basically, that's like I'm really comfortable with text to column, so I didn't even think about something different. But you know, that's also a big problem when you're at the, I would say, like above average level of knowledge of Excel. Like you really have a lot of things you're capable to do, and you have a lot of things you know, but there could be more efficient things. And actually, the great thing about Excel esports is that it forces you to expand your let's say skill set, expand your knowledge, expand the formulas and the functions that you know, so that you can be even more efficient. And then at one point, that could really save you hours of real life work.
So we actually also discussed this earlier in the week, Jason and I, and this, in this case, text to columns could have also trimmed the spaces for you. So it has multiple, like it does a trim, it does a value, it does a double split. So you could actually get a lot more, like Dan said, work done with the text to columns. We also have a comment that said, well, text split can do both column and row delimiters. So there's multiple ways of solving this question. But in a lot of cases, from the training that I've done, I've reverted back to text to columns in a lot of cases, because text to columns just, it works quickly and it's done, and you could do that for all 100 games at once, and you're done, and you don't have to like keep on building a formula from scratch. So I guess it's down to strategy, and it's down to a use case.
Yeah,
exactly. And two comments I'll make on that. One, the good cases have multiple ways to do them. So coming back to our discussion about what makes a good case to an author, if there's only really one way to solve a particular problem that's going to be quick, yeah, it's fine, but it's not ideal. It's better if there are multiple ways, and people can do different things. The other is just, like you said, just getting more tools in your toolbox. When I teach financial modeling, I've always sort of used a philosophy of, I want to expand the amount of tools people have in their toolbox, and I want to expand their knowledge of each tool so that they can choose, they're more likely to choose the right tool for the job in any given modeling situation. And that equally applies here. Even looking at the dice question before and using the Unicode, that's a new technique people haven't seen they can put in their toolbox. The other way would be to use some sort of lookup table or an index match to against the dice icons, to convert it into a number. So again, multiple ways to turn the dice into numbers, or the cards into numbers that you can then work with. Having, practicing cases, watching videos of people who do the cases, you learn more tools, you add those to your toolbox, and then you'll be better poised to do well yourself in these competitions.
Absolutely, Dan. And not only in in competitions, it's also more about your real life or day-to-day job, because as you spend these things, you can do a lot of things differently, much faster and much more efficiently. So then basically the idea for level 2 was quite similar. So it's just the different parameters for the text to columns or text split or whatever other way you might think of. For level 3, again, I was using text to columns, and I was using the find replace thing here. So basically the idea was that to convert these numbers into solvable numbers. So right now that's stored as text because that's kilometers per hour. So one of the ideas, if you are not splitting that with the spaces, but then you might just KMH replaced with nothing, and it does the work for you. So that's another trick that could have been used here. On level 4, and then of course here you just need to select the numbers that are higher than 50 kilometers per hour, because that's considered to be speeding, and you get to select only the numbers that correspond to these. And by doing these, I was just using the left function. So basically the idea was that I was using the value around the right function that took away the first 2 letters. So the logic here is that
and so it's interesting on the format there, like that requires every plate to have exactly 2 letters. And if you know that's in the rules of the question, you can use that. But like some of the plates had 3 numbers, some had 4 numbers, some of the speeds had 2 digits, some had 3 digits.
Yes.
And that all, depending on what method you use, would complicate your the answer and the complexity in you need it in your formula.
In the formula
is good. It makes a good question.
Yeah, well, in the question, actually, that was mentioned that basically your numbers, like there are always 2 letters, but the number of the numbers.
It is, and yeah, I guess my general point is on any sort of question that involves text manipulation, text string manipulation, ripping data out of text, ripping information out of text, knowing what you can assume as a given and what might change that you have to cater for the variability of is very important for you to then plan out your approach and to write out your formula. So hopefully, if the case design is nice, they kind of tell you, or hopefully it's short enough you can scan for yourself and see. But yeah, or in some cases you might be like, well, 90% of them fit this pattern, 10% don't. I'm just going to write something that deals with the 90% quite quickly and get some points, but not all points, and there's different ways, different strategies.
So yeah, well, and then basically you just summarize all the numbers that are there for the that are higher than 50 kilometers per hour. So I believe I didn't do that in the most efficient way. So basically, I just written a formula that compares that if the speeding next to the number is higher than 50, then it's okay. Then it's the number. Otherwise, that's going to be a 0. And just copy that across and made a summation formula at the back. So that was a quick thing for me. Definitely, there are different, maybe more efficient ways. Again, with like creating cases, makes you think more of how to make the problem, but it takes time from you just to find ways of what could be the very most efficient way to solve it. And that's actually where I'm starting to look at what the players do there. On level 4, we also have to introduce the fine. So basically, you have to compare the speed with the speed limit over here. Like, how much are you actually speeding? You also have to allow for the calibration allowance. That's going to be if you're speeding like 54, then essentially it's 51. If you're speeding 53, then you are kind of forgiven 3 kilometers because that could have been an error of the calibration of the speed camera, and you're free from the fine. So that or sometimes that's going to bring you from one bracket to the lower bracket, and you get a smaller fine. And the logic there was basically, I think that was still not the place where I was switching from let's say line by line solution to a data table type solution. So that's again quite the same thing. So I split the numbers, I split the speeds, and then with
and I liked about this that level 3 and 4, you could use exactly the same approach, whatever you happen to use, to get the information out of the plates, and then it was only the last bit of okay, now what do I actually do, what numbers do I have to flag and add up, that changed between the 2 questions. But
you're right,
all the work to go from the plates to workable information was exactly the same in level 3 and 4. And so it's good if you write something then that you can, okay, great, now I can just apply whatever I did to the next level.
Yeah, and actually a good idea here, one of the approaches that the players could take here is that try building the solution in a way that could help you in the next level. So here what I did, I basically took the level 3 numbers or formulas, copied that over to the same places on level 4, and that did it like most of the work for me. I really did have to redo only slightly the numbers on the back, and that's it. Yeah. So that's level 4. On level 5, that's where I kind of switched from, let's say, making the solution all in one line to the 2-dimensional solution, like from 1 dimension to 2 dimensions. So here is the list of different license plates, And here we need to, and basically, and also the list is very long. So instead of 10 or 11 license plates, you're basically getting a total of 100 license plates and their speeds, and all of them are speeding. And the problem here is that some of these license plates do not belong to your country, so they have a different format. And it's been discussed there in the competition rules, in the case rules. How does that work? So my approach here, when I was testing that for before the competition, was to basically check each of these. I have split all these license plates for every single, let's say, case number. So we have problems from number 61 to 80. So this example is for example, for number 75. I think I was just double testing the last time what's happening there on number 75. And my approach was that I indexed all of these numbers, all of these license plates, and and matched, as you see, the numbers are stored in this every second column. So basically I had a index number from 1 to 200 and matched that through the number times 2 and minus 1, so that I get the right number of match. So with all these numbers, I'm looking also for the length of that and split that to different symbols. And then what I did, I was trying to check whether the first symbol is a letter, whether the second symbol is a letter, whether the third symbol is a number, then a number, a number, a number, and whether the seventh symbol is a empty. So if that was holding, then basically that was a locus. So I needed to have all the 7.
You don't like the is number function? You prefer to see if the code of the character is in a certain range?
I think I used to have it, but I kind of thought that code was more.
Oh, yeah, it definitely works. I mean, like you said, there's no one right way to do things.
Yeah, I think I was afraid more, I use this number quite often, but I think I was afraid, if that gets treated as 0, I just really don't, when you're testing,
sure.
That was not an attempt for speed, and my goal there was to really test that for precision. And Diarmuid was helping me to test the cases for the finals game, and it seems that quite often when you have a lot of cases, most of them are coming with very few mistakes, just to the fact because there's a lot of work being done to make them precise. So and that was the idea, that basically if you get all these equal to 1, then it's a local car. If something is different, then it's a foreign car, and you don't get any money from there. And then you build a data table towards the end, and you get the total amount of fines that you are able to get, and that's just being easy to copy to the answer tab. And on level 6, again, that's basically exactly the same solution. So what I did, I just copied these new numbers, split them into columns, and then copied everything else from level 5, with the only exception that these additional things needed to be double checked for whether it's a speeding in the city or outside of the city, and whether some other things. What's the speed limit? What's the speed camera allowance? So only a few items were changed there, and that was basically level 5 solution, being quite easy to apply. So So as for the bonus questions, for the first one, I just let me see. I think I just split that into digits. So basically valued them. I split that into middle first, second, third, and fourth digit, and just made some simple countifs calculations of how many of them are there. A little bit of extra work, but again, I was going for precision there. So I didn't quite have to, calculate or find these.
Yeah, you knew the answer. You didn't have to solve them.
Yeah, basically the way I did that, I knew how the speeds calibrated across all the levels. So I just took one car somewhere in the middle of the pack and assigned the speed that was, significantly bigger than the any possible speed for the other cars, and the same for this slowest car, or vice versa. That's it. So yeah, and the way I would be doing that, I would probably notice that like most of the cars are driving or are in more or less the same speed zone. So that basically that's only level 6 because there are speed limits of 120 and more. So basically we should be probably looking somewhere here, and speed limits of 30 and below or 20 and below. Yeah, so slowest car should be somewhere in this range, and would be probably taking it from there, splitting and looking for the highest number. So basically trying, if I was going for the speed, I would probably be looking for a max on like the maximum amount somewhere over here, and that would give me 183. So then I'll be looking for 183.
No.
No, not here, but somewhere it should be there.
Just match entire cell contents. Just click.
Yeah, that's it.
Entire cell contents.
So 369 SJG, and that's yeah, that's exactly the car. And for the slowest, that's probably going to be the same. There was only one car that was driving 22 kilometers per hour. All the others were driving at a 23 or more. Yeah, so basically 22. So and NQ 844. No.
I think
that was 21 as well. Sorry.
Sorry, I just like seeing how you actually use the status bar there. And I mean, you can actually expand the status bar, but we sort of tend to want to jump into formulas every time. But something like the status bar is something that is quite
That's
you want to use.
Yeah. So basically,
it just so happens there's the car doing 21 within level 6.
Yeah, I think so. I just can't find that somehow. You know what? I know what's the reason. There is 21.
It's in game 87.
In
game 87.
And the fact is that actually the bonus questions were appearing there a bit later, and basically one of these 22s actually was later.
Oh, you manually changed it to 21 after you said it. Yeah, there it is in column AA. Yeah, that one.
You're right. So that's basically it for this case. So again, like, you don't have to write formulas to answer some of the questions. You just really have to find like with all that was already done on level 6, you could have split these numbers, go to find, and go look at the status bar and get these numbers. So, and actually, like, as you see that basically there is a lot of text across all the 6 levels that could have been done even quite fast. So what you do, you just go split that into 6 tabs and check for the highest speed. That's it. So
once you have an efficient way of getting the speeds out, which the text to columns provided, but if you struggle with that, and I mean, I did this case under competition timing, obviously, and I just made stupid syntax errors and stupid little mistakes and things which cost me points, but within the 30 minutes, leaving those mistakes aside, I would have got levels 1 and 4 out. Level 5, I would have needed to do something new, to figure out the countries that I hadn't considered, and wouldn't have got it done under the 30 minutes under a first look at the problem, stupid mistakes aside. So it's always different looking back at them after the fact, where you can take time and consider how you would do it, and if you want to publish a oh, look, here's my work example, the solution, that's neat and teachable. It's going to look very, very different to what's optimal under competition rules, where you want to use every shortcut you can just to grab the answer, even if it's something that's not elegant.
Yeah, and that's why, like Andrew said, you want to do as many cases as you want, as you can, in preparing for these things, and do them under time.
Yeah, and I think try to do them both in a way where you give yourself a time limit and a way where you don't give yourself a time limit, and you write a more structured approach, and you learn from both ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And an example that I always like to share was like when I did the battleship case as the qualifying round of last year. I actually wanted to do the mid sequence, but I wasn't practiced in mid sequence, and for some reason it completely threw me. And if I had just gone with text to columns, I would have done it in a couple of seconds, and I would have been done with that sort of section. So that's why you need practice, and you need to find your stride and say, you know what, I'm going to do text to columns in these cases, and in these cases I'll do a sequence mid or whatever's necessary.
Yeah, so basically you really have to feel comfortable. You really don't want to use a function that you don't you're not comfortable with. Like in the beginning of my career, I wasn't really comfortable with, let's say, index match, for example. Like it was always returning something wrong, or VLOOKUP, for example. And in the competition, if I was taking part at that time, well, of course I would fail, but that would be probably not the function I would be using. So
yeah. Okay, so let's quickly get into the last case. I'm going to try and not spend too much time on it. So this case was designed by me, and it was designed around a popular board game. Dan named it earlier, but they were.
I'm allowed to name it. I'm just a visitor.
So essentially it's a board game, and in cases like this, it's always good to use a mod. We spoke about that. Once you have a loop that it needs to run around, you have to use a mod, or you have to use some kind of principles of mod. And if you don't know how a mod works, then that's something that you should familiarize yourself with, because there's essentially 40. There's 39 game pieces, but you start on one, so there's 40 numbers that goes around. The case essentially has cell names ranging from cell 0 to cell 39, and each one of them are named a name of a function or an error type in Excel, and each one of them has a category as well. And then some of them have prices where there are pieces that you can buy, where players can buy the pieces, they've got a price. And where it's not a piece that you can buy, it could have an action where you can either gain money or you need to give away money. Each player starts with $1,500, and essentially if they land on a piece, they have the option to buy it or not. In this case, the option was always taken. If it's available and the player has the money, they would buy the actual game piece. And then the background basically talks around two teams playing against one another, and they are buying the ability to use the formula in modeling. So what I did that helped me quite a lot in this case was a lot like Jason's attempt at Euchre, where it was where I actually used name ranges, and using named ranges just helped me always refer back to things, and I didn't have to come back to the game board every time or copy my game board across. I could just refer to cell numbers. I could refer to cell names where necessary, but I didn't need that. I could refer to categories, prices, and then actions. Because of the get and the pay, I quickly just went and I just typed them out. But I removed the new from this, because you get 200 every time you pass new, so you wouldn't necessarily need to land on new. So that's a little rule that you need to actually model for. The bonus questions were actually quite easy, and the bonus questions could have been done on the whole data set. So what I did on the bonuses was I literally copied out all 100 games without the examples, and I went and I did a text to columns on all 100 of them. And then I could solve all of them with one formula. So the first one was essentially just summing if all of the cells, I referred to all of them. I actually referred, just to test Excel a bit, I actually referred to the whole table all the way around, because I was trying to do it under time. And I said, well, if that's 2 6s, it's 1, otherwise it's a 0, and that sum that up. That gave me bonus question 1, because the question was how many times did a player throw a 12? So that's 2 6 dices across all the games. The second question essentially asked what is the total number of pips thrown on all the dices in all the games. And what I did was I basically used one formula. I used a 2 col of a block of this bonuses table. So I think I just used this block, and it gave me 36 pairs. And I knew that 36 pairs would be 6 times 6, right? So 36 pairs, and I basically just split them up left and right with a dynamic array with the little hash. And then I just did the Unicode that Dim also talked about. Did the Unicode across both and did the sum across both. And then I gave these things named ranges as well. So I actually built this little Biro lambda formula because I wanted to just sum up all of them just to see how quickly I can do this. But I mean, it's once you've done this once or twice, it's actually so easy. This Biro with a basic lambda like a sum to sum up 2 dynamic arrays by row essentially. But you could have just gone sum and pulled the formula down. But I wanted to do it dynamically, and then I named these ranges as well. So I named these dice, and I named the pips, and from there on I could always just look up dice to pips, and that worked really well in the speed of solving this as well. So when I looked up this, I just did the sum of the XLOOKUP of all the cells, looked it up to dice, and returned pips, and if you didn't find anything, just return a 0, and that gave me the bonus second question. The third question is essentially what is the largest number of full laps a player has made on level 5, and there were actually quite a couple of them, but I initially split them out by just again doing a lookup from dice to pips across the whole range, divided by 40, and then just rounded that down. So a very simplistic way to get a lot of points. I think it's 250 points that you could have scored. I just rounded down the max to zero number of digits, but then later on I said, well, I wanted to just see how could I do this in one formula, and again I just did a Biro with a lambda and a round down and a sum and an XLOOKUP and a max all in one. So it's not overly complex to do this once you have the named ranges down there, and that makes for an interesting solve. So that's what I wanted to share on this one. But yes, the dice lookup table really made my life easier because I didn't have to do the Unicodes 100 times. I did it once, and it was usable for all 5 levels. Because this was also one of those cases where I don't think anyone seeing it the first time will be able to solve everything in half an hour's time. But I guess there are guys that could prove me wrong on this. So level 1, I actually split out in a separate sheet, just because of the fact that there was real estate used for this table, so I didn't want to like split it out. So I just copied it across quickly, put it into multiple columns. And one thing that I found that helps a lot on these cases, and I've seen Dim do this as well, is copy out all your sort of game pieces, copy them out multiple times across. And that helps just being able to check whether I've got the right number of columns in my formulas. So for a basic error of how many columns do I need, and over here I need 10. In later levels, I actually went, and I think in level 3, no, I think in a later level, maybe it's a level that I solved in the case itself, but there I just used the sequence because I'm expecting 5. So I used the sequence 5, and I just copied that across every time just to make sure that I am actually working with 5 at a time, so that I don't miss a column or go over a column. So that's just a little tip from my side.
I think it's only the old dim you saw do that. The new dim just does everything in single cell array formulas now.
Watch too many Bow videos. But yeah, so question number 1 was essentially asking what was the first function or feature that player lands on, and I guess the only intricacy here is the fact that the first, what is the price? The first function might not necessarily have a price. So the challenge with this question is you have to find the first one that actually has a value. And I guess there's multiple ways of doing this, but in the end, I actually did this with a take. With a take and a filter, where the filter is more than 0. Just take the first one. I guess there's a more clever way of doing this, but that was my take on this. So yes, again, a next lookup to dice and pips. Then I did a mod sum, a locked sum for columns. So I locked it for columns. And there's an easy way to actually build this. I've actually seen them build this as well. But when you do something like that, there's an easy way to do this where you could just click on the first cell and then put in a is it a colon? Put in a colon, and that basically copies that cell out, and then you can just basically go and refer to this one and lock it, and go and say, well, now I'm ready, and then that's ready to copy across. Anyway, so I did the mod for 40 on the locked sum, and then just an X lookup again with using my named ranges, just because it's simpler. Cell numbers and prices, that brought back the prices, and then I did the filter and the take, and I think that was quite an elegant solution, but it was quite a difficult level 1 in comparison with others that I've seen before. So it takes a bit of setup in this case.
Renier, I just wanted to say, I think it's really cool to see you solving cases with some of the really new functions. I think a lot of us default to what we know, and a lot of us have been using Excel for many years, pre sort of 2018, 2019. So we sort of default to what we know best, because that in the context of the competition, that makes the most sense, right? You want to get stuff done as quickly as possible. So what you know is what you should go with. But sort of feeding off of Dan's comment earlier about take these cases, challenge yourself to do it under time pressure, and then challenge yourself to do it without the time pressure, and think of how you could do it better. And then I'd add like one other layer to that, and then see if you can see how someone else does it, because the way of approaching it would be completely different. And over time you can build the confidence to do the things the faster way. For example, your take 1 is a really cool way of just taking the value, whereas I did like index 1 kind of thing, and I guess that's a silly example because pretty much
and in my case I had a string of either a 0 or 1 for each roll, with a 1 being you land on a thing you can buy, and then I just do an exact match looking for 1 in that string of 0s and 1s. or that range of 10 cells of zeros and ones, and I know that'll return the first one. So, yeah, lots of different ways. But I didn't occur to me to use take for this.
It's great to see the lambdas and the takes and the biros and everything. It's
this solution was built the second or third time that I tried this. Trying to like we said, trying to think about like if I had to do this again, how would I approach this?
But I think the fact that you're practicing that is great, because when the dynamic arrays came out, the biggest thing that all financial modelers, sort of traditional financial modelers, were shouting at was you can't sum a dynamic range, because then you sum the whole range, right?
Yeah.
But you mentioned a few minutes ago, like for you, the bicol or biro.
Yes, but when they first came out, bicol and biros didn't exist. So
that's what I'm saying.
Financial model.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But yeah,
we were doing matrix multiplication and whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, now we have bicol and biro, thank goodness. But I must admit, I have not tried to do it myself, just because I sort of gave up, because it didn't exist when the dynamic arrays came out. But Renier is now probably super efficient at like, I need to sum up the dynamic output, bicol, biro, lambda sum, done. Quick. You can probably do it in your sleep now.
Yeah, and it's true. Like it's one of those things that it's actually easy. It's designed to be easy, but it takes a bit of just wrapping your head around it. Like the first time you did a VLOOKUP, you also had to wrap your head around it, right? And now it comes naturally. But anyways, so the level 2 is essentially just what is the player's bank balance after 5 turns. So same logic applies, just taking $1,500 and deducting the price of each piece that they land on, and getting to an answer, putting that back in the answers. Then if I look at level 3, little bit more complex. The player the player still plays on his own, but buys every function that they land on. When do they run out of money? On which turn number? And now we've got more dice, and because there's more dice, I immediately thought, because I'm already in column AJ, I'm not going to build all of this. Like, I'm not going to try and build it out to the right of this. That's when I just jump into a data table in this case. And also I'm happy that I did that, because I needed a couple of helper columns. I didn't necessarily need it, but in the way that I approached the solution, I needed it. So basically use the transpose XLOOKUP back to the case, looked up the game number, or the example number in this case, for my data table, set that up in that way. Then did the XLOOKUP dice pips that I've done 100 times. The mod sum, the locked sum, now locked for rows and not for columns anymore. Immediately when I get to this kind of solution, I just prefer doing it running down, because the whole model can be built on one screen, and I can much more easily actually problem solve it. So with the new, relatively new transpose formula, that makes it much easier. So and then basically I'm determining whether it's a first hit or not, and the first hit is either where it has a price, or where the count of that specific cell is equal to 1. So if that is the case, I should be able to multiply by that first hit. So I'm basically doing a sum product of that. And in the past new, I'm just determining when is the next value less than the previous value, because then I know the player has passed new, or past go in this case, or past new. And then the price is just a lookup on the XLOOKUP. The actions is just a lookup as well. And then the balance is just sort of a product of all of those things. So pretty much just taking the balance, running it down, and multiplying by first hit where the price where it is actually a first hit. So where a cell has been bought before, I multiply the price by 0 essentially, so it doesn't reduce my player's balance. Put that into a data table with this is my column picker, and that solves that case. Then for level 4, the complexity is now it's split into 2 players, and the first throw essentially decides which player starts first, and that is pretty much, I guess, the most difficult part of this whole question, is handling that. And there's multiple ways again to handle this. Firstly, I used an index, an X match, and the X match became my index for bringing back player 1 and 2's dice rolls. And I built this out so that I could make sure that it's ready for case or for level number 5 as well, because in the end I could just copy level 5 across, change a couple of things, and level 5 in this case was actually easier than level 4 in my opinion. But I guess it depends on a player by player basis. I initially took this and I initially built it out with the Unicode, but later on I didn't actually need it. I didn't actually need this because I could just use my X lookup to my dice table. The plays is essentially just determining is player 2 higher than player 1 in this case. If that is the case, then yes. And then I just use the switch function to actually switch between 1 or 2 where it's the other, or where it's the one or the other. So if it's 1, it will become 2. If it's 2, it'll become 1. And then that just makes it much simpler than multiple ifs or a nested if or an if formula. And then rounds I actually built from a sequence of 10 rows and 2 columns. And pieces is then again the mod 40 principle. Pass go is the same principle. First land is the same principle, but now I need to determine first land based off of on which round does which player play, and then by that logic, what is the value that is thrown first by that player, and then from that sorry, this still has some old formulas in there, but by that I'm just basically determining is that a piece of land, or is that a piece that you can buy or not. If it is a piece that you can buy and it has occurred before, then it's not allowed. So from that I basically put that back into, with the wrap rows function, put that back into the shape of my model, and then use the same logic to multiply. I use the switch just to switch between player 1 and player 2 to determine which value needs to be used. Recalculated the actual balance, and this was just to test my balances, put that back into a data table, and Bob's your uncle. So yes, that to me was a bit more complex than level 5, and probably the most difficult part of this. But once you could wrap your head around determining who plays first, and then how do I actually determine if that piece has been bought before, and whether that player can actually buy that piece, that would sort of solve
that said, that block of logic about who lands first, can they buy it, is needed in level 5 as well.
Yes,
I think it's very hard to do it under the time pressure, but reading this now and then thinking about how you set up a solution, you'll try to set up something consistent for level 4 and 5 that you set up once and it does both, and kind of the only thing that's different is in level 5 everything effectively costs $0, whereas level 4 it costs the real money, and then the answer you're looking for is slightly different. In level 4 you're looking, what's the balance? For level 5 you're looking at when does someone own a set or meet a certain condition about the property they own. But all that other legwork behind it you've got is kind of consistent between the two. But again, it's difficult under the 30 minutes to decide to do it that way. It's more natural just to go level by level by level, or look at a level, say, oh, I think that's hard, skip it, go to the next one. 9 times out of 10 that'll be even more hard, but maybe in this one you'll say, oh, actually, yeah, that's easier, because you're right, you don't need to track bank balances in level 5.
Yeah, that's a great summary there. And I mean that's exactly it. The same logic applies on most of it. Now you just need to bring in the categories, and you need to determine how many categories exist and by whom they are owned, and when does that person own a full category. And then the other thing that I didn't account for initially was to say, you know what, I need to make sure that I actually so like round one is actually, that's round one. So you shouldn't basically say that's what round 1, 2, 3, 4, but that's round one because there's 2 players. That's round 2, that's round 3. And then just getting back a min. I think I just did a min ifs. Yeah, I just did a min ifs, and where it's 0, I made the answer 50. But essentially min ifs that value is but basically when that value equals the other value, when it's the sum of the sum. Yeah, I guess I'm struggling to express myself right now, but yeah, it's a min ifs of the round where the category, the count if of the category is equal to the actual count, the global count. But yeah, so agreed. So level 5 you could actually solve in only a couple of minutes if you've set up level 4 correctly.
And this is why also I like how you've done one worksheet per level, because even if you progress through these, level by level, once you've finished level 4 on its own worksheet, the first thing you do is just make a very quick copy of that worksheet. Yes. Just hold down Control and drag it to the left and make a copy, and change your little index reference up there to look to the level 5 block of cases, and then everything else is done. Effectively, you've then done level 4 for the level 5 data, and then you just got to go and change one little part, or in this case add a little bit part to just add the work around when is the set solved.
Exactly. And I actually, that's why I went back to level 4 now. I actually built this with level 5 in mind automatically. So I already made my index just run down 2 more cells so that I could just apply the same logic to level 5.
Yeah, that's clever. Yeah.
So you don't have to, you can actually go down to all of them.
Yeah.
So as long as there's no merged cells.
Something else. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but anyways, that's I think that's everything that I wanted to discuss. So, so in the end, there was 1,250 points available, but I think the highest score was in the high 500s range, I think, which was to me already very impressive because I wouldn't have been able to score 580 odd points in half an hour. But I'm not as fast or as competent as some of these players, and hats off to the guys, to the top 8, and all the best of luck for Saturday. I'm going to be one of the biggest geeks watching and joining early and watching the live stream. It should be a doozy, as they say.
Yeah, it should be a great show, and you're welcome to join and post everything in the chats and cheer for the players. So whoever you choose to root for. And that's going to be a great game. So tune in for ESPN or for YouTube, and this will be a great show on Saturday. Yeah. So yeah, we've significantly overrun because, like I said, the cases have we've become better friends throughout these live feeds, and we've had more and more to talk about, and the cases are getting more and more interesting. So I'm looking forward to discuss the last 3 cases. So it'll be the top 8, and then the top 4, and then the top 2. So yes, on Saturday,
3 more cases to discuss.
Yeah, 3 more cases to discuss next week. So on Saturday, live 5 p.m. I'll see you all there. And
5 p.m. London time. Yeah.
Yeah, and good luck for the last preparations and the last testing and the last couple of IT things to organize on your team side, Andrew. Yeah. And thanks, Jason and Dan, for joining as well. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for hosting us. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, have a good day and evening. Goodbye.
Will do.
Cheers, guys.